Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here. Another edition of Off the Top Rope. Another big bit of news that came out of Money in the Bank is not related to Money in the Bank. WrestleMania 42. It is official after being announced in February that it was going to be in New Orleans. That's clearly not the case. It was publicly made official a couple weeks ago that that was not happening. And here we are about 3.5 months later. It was officially announced on the Money in the Bank telecasts. Officially, it will be coming back basically the same weekend. I think it's the 18th and the 19th instead of 19th and 20th in 2026. It will be WrestleMania 42. They are doubling down, is what they're saying. They're going back to Vegas. Neat little tagline. It'll be at Allegiant Stadium for the second consecutive year. It's only the second time that's ever happened. I think it was 4 and 5. Don't quote me on that. Listen, there was no good way that this was going to be handled or doled out. It was already bad optics. Um, the stuff with New Orleans and the way that that got laid out, like New Orleans was kind of a little bit of a mess. It's a good city to go to, but I think in terms of handling a big event, I know they just had the Super Bowl. It wasn't going to work out. Clearly, Vegas came in with a ton of money and obviously, handled that. And obviously, WWE is going to sell out for every dollar. Maybe in their minds, they wanted to execute a better show because this was not the best WrestleMania. It was probably the weakest under Triple H. Listen, I look. I've made no secrets about it. Like, I do not like some of the aspects of this TKO era, and trying to get every dollar and cent out of everybody's pocket. It's made the company profitable, which is great. That being said, if there's one thing that I would really like to see is I'd really like to not see this WrestleMania in particular be corporate. Because if they're gonna go about it the same way that they did at WrestleMania 41, I don't know if they're gonna have the same type of success in terms of ticket sales that they're gonna want. It's still probably gonna be a heck of an event. They're gonna do everything they can to make this as successful as possible. But this really screams corporate greed, and it doesn't land very well for me as a guy who I wanted to see this WrestleMania. I saw the West Coast one out here for 39. They're basically doing this in Vegas, which is basically where TKO is kind of housed. You have the UFC out there. It's just from a public perceptions perspective, it's going to take a lot to get the fans really behind doing Las Vegas again next year, because it's just like what makes WrestleMania so unique is that they jump from city to city every single year, and it's not a repeat location. Doing this event in the same location again, just, it doesn't, and especially considering that it was announced already for another location 3.5 months ago in February by The Rock. So you made The Rock look stupid, which I really don't give a shit about. You guys know I'm not a fan of what Dwayne The Rock Johnson has really shown his true colors. And hey, you know what? Hey, maybe this is, hey, Rock, you can do WrestleMania 42 against Roman Reigns. Maybe that's where, like, again, I said that it's now or never for that match. I don't expect it to happen because, like, listen, it's been pretty clear that The Rock operates on The Rock's time, but um, the way that this whole situation was handled was pretty piss poor in my opinion. And it's listen, we knew that this was where it was going. It had been speculated for a couple of weeks that this was the direction that they were going to go. And, a lot of fans were not very happy about it. I honestly thought it made a ton of sense to go to London. That wasn't going to happen. They weren't going to go to Indianapolis, even though they're not going to go to Minneapolis. They're not going to go to any of these other places. So, listen, there's just no good way to handle this. And so they did it on Money in the Bank. They did it in a West Coast city. Um, you know, we'll see how this goes in a handful of months when we get to Vegas. There's going to be a Saudi Arabian Royal Rumble. There's going to probably be a Saudi Arabian WrestleMania at some point. And this is just what TKO is. This is who they are. They're going to get every dollar and cent that they want to maximize profit. And, that doesn't really settle well with a lot of these diehard WWE fans who, really like it's that. like profit at some point. I hope that TKO realizes that this shouldn't be all about like, making money and just like, turning it into a corporate business and just like, not doing that because at some point you're going to alienate the fans. And I don't think that that's what they want, but maybe that is what they want. Because at a certain point, like you're not going to be able to make a profit because people are going to get sick and tired of this crap. And this is a really questionable decision, like, to really announce publicly a city that you're going to, then go back on it, delay WrestleMania a week now, and now you're going back to the same city you were. And that hasn't happened in nearly 40 years. Like it hasn't happened there where the repeat location. And like I said, I think what you're risking here is you're doing the same location over again. And what makes WrestleMania, like I said, inherently unique as an event, a sporting event, an entertainment event, is it jumps from place to place. It's not the same every single year, but you're doing it in the same exact venue, same thing that you did, almost the same exact weekend as you did this year. So the only thing that could be different is, hey, it's a better event. And hopefully that's the case that we go into WrestleMania 42 and we have a much better and much more, intense and like, heated build, unlike what happened this year. That's the only thing that I can really hope for. So, it's a big bit of news. Really anticlimactic in my opinion, because everybody knew that this was what was going to happen. So they just sort of announced it and they just sort of revealed the video package. Neat little tagline, we're doubling down. Hey, hey, we're in Vegas. It's all about gambling and everything and whatnot. They'll make a ton of money, but I'm like I said, they better have a better plan than they did this year because this year did not go. They made a ton of money, but from a fan perspective, it was not a good look for WWE. So we'll see where this goes, but very interesting situation to monitor as we head in the next, 10 or so months before we get to WrestleMania 42 next year in Las Vegas. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.